Okay, I thought I'd do a quick update on why I train the way I do, how I train. I don't pretend that what I'm doing is perfect for everybody. It's what works for me, but it's based on a fair bit of science. It's also based on more than 40 years of experience. I'm now well into my late 50s, so unfortunately I'm not the elite athlete. If I ever was one, I'm certainly not the one I was. I always make sure I have access to fresh air if I possibly can get it. I love that. I like to have a bit of a view, but it's not essential. Sometimes we all have to train indoors. The other thing I'm quite fixated on is not using digital feedback all the time. I do have a heart rate monitor. I think they have a place, but mine, if I'm going for any distance at all, generally tells me I'm at 100% of my age group capacity and I'm completely comfortable. So whether that means it's set a bit low or I train a bit too hard, I'm not sure, but I'm comfortable doing it. So for my 30 and 40 minute sessions, I'm usually at 100% of heart rate, but it doesn't seem to hurt me. So that'd be one proviso on that, as well as the provisos on digital feedback on any machine. I think we have to be very careful of how we interpret that. The one thing I do really believe in is before I train, as often as possible, I have a look at some really good rowing, because that reminds me of what I'd like to achieve, whether I then go on to achieve anything like that. But there's lots of those on YouTube. You can look at the German 8, you can look at the men's quad, such as Dan was in from Australia. There's plenty of those you can do. Get you in the right mood to row properly. The other thing I always do is a bit of stretching before. I tend to do a lot more afterwards. So I do a couple of these sort of stretches. Then I might move to that. I'm trying to abbreviate, I'll do it for a bit longer. So I'll do a couple of those. I've obviously warmed up a little bit before doing the video. Same again. Okay, and my other favourite way to warm up, particularly one that works the best actually, is to do 15 strokes on the machine and then just stop for a minute. Okay, so I'll just get going and I might take 10 or 15 light strokes. Abbreviate again. So assume we've done that. For me that works pretty much every time. The basis of training for me is that every bit of evidence available says that exercise gives you growth hormone. The fact that I'm still healthy may or not have nothing to do with that, but there seems to be some science to say that that's a good thing to have. Okay, so every time you exercise, you get some growth hormone. The more intensively you exercise, the more growth hormone you produce. The other thing that is definitely true as well is that when you exercise, you produce a type of growth hormone for your brain called BDNF, brain development neurotrophic factor. Don't know that mine's particularly big, but it doesn't do it any harm. But also the release of BDNF is directly proportional to the intensity of the exercise as well. So both your normal growth hormone and your brain growth hormone are both produced in direct proportion to the intensity of the exercise. Okay, so the specific value of rowing for me, I've had spinal surgery just under a year ago. The two things I've done in my recovery has been to row on this machine or in a boat only, and also to get in a saltwater pool and basically stir my arms, and I'm still doing that very regularly. And I do a bit of swimming, but not so much swimming as just hard exercise and moving, and I'll do my legs up and down and a few jumps in the water. And all I can say is that within months of back surgery, I was back rowing in a boat very hard, and I'm lucky, and that may or may not be because I was rowing or because I had a good surgeon. It just might be pure luck, and I understand that. Okay, so what I do for my base workout is very repetitive, 3 times a week at least, depending on time available of course, but this is a compressed exercise thing. I'll do my stretches, I might do a set of push-ups or something, and then I'll do 200 strokes at about rate 26, having watched someone like Dan or the fellows in the German 8 do their thing. I'll try and think about replicating that using the mirror neurons that I have, that obviously not as good as what those guys have got, but it gives me something to aim for. So I'll do 200 strokes at about 26, then I have a break, then I'll do 10 or 15 times 20 strokes on, 10 strokes dead light at a much higher intensity. Okay, so that might be a rate 36 to 40, really pulling as hard as I possibly can, and then just recovering in between. And depending how motivated I am, I'll do between 10 and 15 sets of that. So I'll just abbreviate. I won't do the whole session and bore you, but basically if I'm ready to go on this, I'll just set this, and I may not even use this a lot of the time, but you can get other ones off the internet, great things that will just work on this machine. So my concentration is on the quality of my movement, not the amount of power that I'm producing. I really could care less what power I'm producing. I'm probably running at 80 or 90% pressure, and I'm rating in the vicinity of 26 to 28. Okay, so I'll just do this. Record, I was doing about 300 and a bit watts, and I was rating about 28 strokes a minute. It's very rare that I even look at that, but it doesn't really matter. What it is I'm comfortable. I'm pulling at about 80-90% pressure. As it goes through, I might start to pull a little bit harder. Okay, then I have a good break. I might do the 200. I'd say I wait at least 3 to 4 minutes. My heart rate's not that high after I've done that. And then this will really hurt if I won't do it for the whole workout, but I'll give you an idea of what I do and how I do it. I would then probably move this up to a higher resistance, but that's just a matter of taste. And then I'd really get stuck in and do the 20 strokes, not pulling a great deal harder than I was in the 200, a little bit harder, but again, concentrating on the quality of my movement, and in particular, looking to get the rate up nice and high, and really, it is, you know, by the 4th or 5th or 6th set, I'm starting to hurt quite a lot. So I'll just give a quick idea of that. I'll back pedal a bit. And so on. Okay, so again, that's the experiment that's worked for me for the last 58 years, or certainly for the last 15 or 20 of those 58 years, and some version of it. I started running when I was 13, so it's 45 years this year. So it works for me. I hope it's of some use to you. Give us some feedback, and if you've got a better idea, please let me know. I would now do some stretching and so on, but for now, cheers.